Hello. Today I'm going to be giving a video on the Sicilian Najdorf with 6 bishop c4. Let's start off with the opening moves: e4, c5, knight f3, d6, d4, cd, knight takes d4, knight f6, knight c3, and a6. The Najdorf. Bishop c4. Here black plays e6, and white's most common continuation is bishop b3. We'll also take a look at moves such as castles and a3. But first, bishop b3. Here black plays knight bd7, and white's main move is f4. However, first let's look at castles. Knight c5, rook e1 protecting the pawn, bishop e7 developing, queen f3, castles, queen g3, king h8, bishop g5, h6. This is a sample variation. Bishop d2, bishop d7, rook a d1, b5, a3, queen b6, knight f3, knight takes bishop, pawn takes knight, e5. That was castles. Now let's look at bishop g5, a move 8. You can play h6. That's one idea. Kasparov played this, and then played his queen out to a5. And after castles, he offered a trade of queens with queen h5. Now, if you don't want to go into an endgame so early on, and you don't want to play for something like this, I looked up in Fritz the book moves, the most common book moves. And here, knight c5 is played, f4, bishop e7, queen f3, queen c7, castles, b5, and this play can continue from here. And it's roughly equal, and Fritz agrees. Okay, let's back up. So that was bishop g5, and I went over the line Kasparov where you can trade queens. Kasparov played that line where you can trade queens, or I gave the Fritz line, the common book moves with knight c5 and common development with bishop e7, and so on. Alright, now let's go over the main move, f4, the main line, knight c5. And now here there's a couple different options for white. First, let's look over the pawn pushes with e5 first. Here you drop your knight back, attacking e5. Then if pawn takes pawn, then you maneuver your knight back to f6. And then with the idea of taking the pawn, next move with bishop takes pawn. And white's double center, white's two pawns, white's f4 and e5 have now broken up, so this pawn center is broken up, and this is good for black. Alright, and now let's go over f5. You play bishop e7, and then sample continuation is queen f3, castles, bishop e3, e5, knight d2, b5, and then a sample game continued. I believe black was Kasparov and white was short. Bishop d5, rook b8, b4. He brought his knight back to d7, castled, knight takes bishop, Knight takes knight. Bishop b7, threatening to take the knight. Short brought his knight back, brought his knight to c3, defending d5. Kasparov brought his knight to f6, and this is all I'm gonna give right here. The game continued on from here. One idea is Kasparov actually played. Eventually, he played bishop takes knight. One idea is to swing your rook to c1 to c4 to try to attack b4. Okay, let's back up and not get into that too much. Alright, so we're going over f4, the main move. We just went over e5 and f5. So now let's go over castles before we go over queen f3. So this is castles. And now if you try to take the pawn, it's not a very good idea. Knight takes, because of f5. And Kasparov actually was black and played this and got into trouble. White got a good attack off this. So the correct response is after castles to play b5. e5. Pawn takes pawn. Pawn takes pawn. Knight takes bishop. And after it takes pawn takes knight, we play bishop c5, threatening the knight on d4. White defends. Then we move our knight to d5, and after the trade, we bring our queen, centralizing our queen. And this is a decent position for black. Okay, let's go back. So that was castles. Now let's go over the main move, queen f3. b5 is played. And here you can play e5 or f5. First, let's go over e5. Well, e5 right here attacks the rook, but now we just play bishop e7. So if you want, so then f5 is the more thematic move, and we play bishop d7. Pawn takes pawn. Pawn takes pawn. Bishop g5 is a sample variation. Bishop b7. Castle's long. Castle's short. And now short played e5 here, and which isn't really that bad. It should lead to black's advantage if played correctly, such as knight d5. And if bishop takes, we take back with the knight. The queen's under attack, so the queen moves, and now we play d5. And now white's light squared bishop is blocked out of the game. And that's really one of our main advantages. We also have queenside counterattacking chances. And that's all I have for the Fischer Sozin. Hope you enjoyed. Thank you for watching. See you later.